The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and fading hope, but it was Dad's whispered words that shattered my world. "I always knew Emily," he rasped, his frail hand clutching mine as the heart monitor beeped slower. "Your mom. She loved her, not me." I was 38, a daughter who thought she knew her parents' story of 40-year marriage, steady as the oak in our backyard, unyielding through storms. But as Dad's breath faltered that night in the Seattle hospital, his confession tore through that illusion. My mother, Margaret, the woman who baked apple pies and kissed my scraped knees, had been in love with another woman. And Dad had known all along. It was 2025 and I sat frozen, the weight of his words sinking in. The man who raised me, who taught me to ride a bike and cheered at my soccer games, had lived a lie to keep our family whole. I didn't know whether to scream or cry, but the ache in my chest demanded answers. Who was this woman Mom loved? Why had she hidden it? And why was Dad telling me now, in his final moments? I stumbled out of the hospital into the damp Seattle night, the city lights blurring through my tears. My mother had been gone for 2 years, taken by cancer, and I'd thought her secrets were buried with her. But Dad's words were a map to a truth I'd never sought, and I was determined to follow it. The next morning I drove to our old family home in Capitol Hill, a craftsman-style house with creaky floors and memories in every corner. In Mom's study I found a locked wooden box under her desk, untouched since her death. My hands trembled as I pried it open with a paperclip, revealing a stack of letters tied with a faded red ribbon. The handwriting wasn't Dad's, it was elegant, slanted, and unfamiliar. The first letter began, "My dearest Maggie, every day without you feels like a theft from my soul." The words hit like a punch. Maggie. No one called Mom that except in stories from her college days. The letters were signed Sarah, and they spoke of stolen moments, secret glances, and a love that burned despite being forbidden. My heart raced as I read, piecing together a story Mom had never shared. Sarah was her college roommate at the University of Washington, a bold, brilliant woman who dreamed of becoming a lawyer. They'd fallen in love in 1983, when being openly gay could cost you everything. But why had Mom chosen Dad? The letters hinted at pressure, family expectations, societal norms, a scholarship tied to a respectable life. Sarah had begged her to run away together, to San Francisco or New York, where they could be free. Mom's responses, tucked between Sarah's letters, were anguished. "I can't break my family's heart, Sarah. I can't lose you, but I can't lose them either." I sat on the floor, surrounded by yellowed pages, my mother's heart laid bare. She'd chosen duty over love, marrying Dad in 1985, burying her truth to build a life society approved of. But the letters didn't end there. They continued into the early 90s, secret meetings in coffee shops, stolen weekends when Dad was away on business. Sarah had never let go, and Mom hadn't either, not fully. The final letter, dated 1995, was different. Sarah wrote, "I'm leaving Seattle, Maggie. I can't keep waiting for a life you won't choose. I'll always love you, but I need to live." There was no reply from Mom. Had she given up? Had she chosen us, me, Dad, our family over her heart? I didn't sleep that night. The letters painted a picture of a woman I'd never known, one who'd sacrificed her happiness for mine. But Dad's dying words echoed. She loved her, not me. Had he known about the letters? Had he loved Mom enough to let her keep her secret? I needed to find Sarah. I needed to know what Mom couldn't tell me herself. Using the university's alumni network, I tracked down Sarah Bennett, now a 60-year-old attorney living in Portland. Her LinkedIn photo showed a woman with sharp cheekbones and jet black hair, a confident smile that hid decades of pain. I sent her an email, my fingers shaking as I typed, "I'm Margaret's daughter. I know about you. Can we talk?" 2 days later, I was on a train to Portland, the letters tucked in my bag. My heart pounded with every mile. What would I say to the woman who'd held my mother's heart? Would she even want to see me? As the train pulled into Union Station, I saw her waiting on the platform, tall, poised, her eyes scanning the crowd. When they met mine, I knew she recognized me. I looked just like Mom. "Emily," Sarah said, her voice soft but steady. "You have her eyes." We walked to a nearby cafe, the air thick with unspoken questions. Sarah's hands fidgeted with her coffee cup as she spoke. "Your mom was my world," she said, her eyes distant. "But she was terrified of losing you, of what the world would do to us. She thought marrying your dad was the only way to protect you. I swallowed hard, the letters burning in my mind. Did she love him? Sarah's smile was bittersweet. She loved him in her way. But not like she loved me. Not like I loved her. Her words were a knife, cutting through the story I told myself about my parents. I wanted to hate her, to blame her for unraveling my family, but I couldn't. She was as much a victim as Mom, trapped by a world that demanded they hide. Why didn't you fight harder? I asked, my voice breaking. Why didn't you make her choose you? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I tried, Emily. God, I tried. But Maggie was stubborn. She thought she was doing the right thing. We sat in silence, the weight of their love pressing down on us. I told her about Dad's confession, about the letters, about the life Mom had lived in secret. Sarah listened, her face a map of grief and longing. When I finished, she reached across the table, her hand hovering over mine. I never stopped loving her, she said. Even when I moved on, when I built a life, she was always there. I drove back to Seattle that night, Sarah's number saved in my phone. The letters were still in my bag, but they felt lighter now, as if sharing their weight with Sarah had eased my own. I didn't know what came next, but I knew I couldn't let Mom's story end with her. I needed to understand her, to honor the love she'd hidden for so long. Back home, I sat under the oak tree in our backyard, the one Mom used to sit beneath when she thought no one was watching. I imagined her there, reading Sarah's letters, her heart torn between duty and desire. I wanted to be angry at her for lying, for choosing a life that hurt her, but all I felt was love. She'd given me everything, even if it cost her everything. The next day I called Sarah again. I want to know more, I said. About her. About you. About what you had. Sarah's voice was warm, tentative. Come back to Portland. I'll tell you everything. And so I went. Portland felt like a different world. Its streets alive with the quiet rebellion that Seattle had tamed. Sarah's apartment was a cozy loft overlooking the Willamette River, filled with books and framed photos of her travels. But one picture stopped me cold. Mom, young and radiant, laughing with Sarah on a beach, their arms around each other. It was dated 1984, the year before Mom married Dad. That was our last summer, Sarah said, her voice heavy with memory. We drove to Cannon Beach, just the two of us. Maggie said it was the freest she'd ever felt. I traced Mom's smile in the photo, trying to reconcile the joyful woman with the one who'd raised me. What was she like then? I asked, my throat tight. Sarah sat across from me, her eyes softening. She was fearless in her own way. She'd argue with professors about literature, dance in the rain without caring who saw. But when it came to us, she was scared. Not of loving me, but of what it would cost her. Sarah told me their story in fragments, each one a brushstroke painting a love I'd never known. They'd met as freshmen, assigned as roommates in a dorm overlooking Lake Washington. Mom was studying English, dreaming of writing novels. Sarah was pre-law, all sharp wit and ambition. Their friendship bloomed into something more one rainy night when Sarah kissed Mom under a campus oak tree, the same kind that stood in our backyard. It wasn't easy, Sarah said. The 80s weren't kind to people like us. We had to hide stolen glances in class, notes slipped under doors. But Maggie made it worth it. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the world. I thought of Mom's warm hugs, her quiet way of listening when I rambled about school or boys. Had she been hiding her pain even then? Why didn't she tell me? I asked. Sarah sighed, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee mug. She wanted to protect you. Your grandparents were strict old-school Catholics. They'd have cut her off if they knew. And when she got pregnant with you, she felt she had no choice. She loved you more than anything, Emily. The word stung. I'd been the reason Mom stayed with Dad, the reason she buried her heart. I wanted to scream at the unfairness of it, at a world that forced her to choose. But Sarah's voice pulled me back. She wrote to me after you were born, she said, pulling out a letter I hadn't seen. It was Mom's handwriting, dated 1987. Sarah, Emily's my world now. I see you in her smile sometimes and it breaks me. I'm sorry I couldn't be brave. Tears blurred my vision. I'd been a toddler when Mom wrote that, oblivious to the sacrifice she'd made. Sarah reached for my hand and this time I let her hold it. Her touch was gentle like Mom's and for a moment, I felt her presence between us. Over the next few days, I stayed in Portland, sleeping on Sarah's couch as she shared more memories. She showed me a journal Mom had kept, filled with poems about love and loss, some dedicated to Sarah. One line haunted me. "My heart is a house with a locked room, and only you have the key." I began to see Mom not just as my mother, but as a woman who'd loved fiercely and lost just as fiercely. Sarah told me about their last meeting in 1995, in a quiet Seattle cafe. Mom had been pregnant with my younger brother, her face worn with exhaustion. She told me she couldn't keep seeing me, Sarah said. It was tearing her apart. I left for Portland the next week. I thought I'd never see her again. But they'd met one final time in 2010, when Mom was battling her first round of cancer. Sarah had come to the hospital, posing as an old friend. "Your dad was there," Sarah said. "He looked at me like he knew everything. He thanked me for coming, but his eyes said, 'Don't take her from me.' I didn't. I couldn't." The revelation hit hard. Dad had known, not just in his final moments but for years. He'd carried Mom's secret, loved her through it, and never let it break our family. I thought of his steady presence, his quiet strength. Had he resented her? Or had he loved her enough to let her heart belong to someone else? I returned to Seattle with more questions than answers, Sarah's stories swirling in my mind. I went back to the hospital records, digging through Mom's old medical files. There, in a nurse's note from 2010, was a mention of a friend who'd stayed by her bedside when Dad and I weren't there. Sarah's name wasn't listed, but I knew. I called Sarah again, needing to understand Dad's role in all this. Did he ever confront her? I asked. Sarah hesitated. Once. In '95, after I left. Maggie told me he found one of my letters. He didn't yell, he just asked her if she was happy. She said she was, because of you and your brother. That was enough for him. I hung up, my heart heavy. Dad had chosen Mom, knowing she'd never fully choose him back. It was a love I couldn't comprehend, selfless to the point of pain. I looked at the oak tree in our backyard, its branches swaying in the wind. I imagined Dad sitting there watching Mom, knowing her heart was elsewhere but staying anyway. I needed to see Sarah again. There was more to their story, more to Mom's heart, and I wasn't ready to let it go. I booked another train ticket to Portland, my bag heavier with Mom's journal, and the weight of her unspoken love. Back in Portland, Sarah's loft felt like a sanctuary, a place where Mom's ghost lingered in every corner. We sat on her balcony, the city lights twinkling below, and she handed me a small box. Inside was a silver necklace with a tiny oak leaf pendant Mom's. She gave it to me before I left Seattle, Sarah said. Said it was to remind me of her. I held the pendant, its edges worn smooth by time. "Why didn't you ever hate her?" I asked. "For choosing Dad, for choosing me?" Sarah's eyes softened. "I tried. But love doesn't work like that. Maggie was my heart, even when she broke it." She told me more about their college years, the nights they'd sneak into empty lecture halls to talk about their dreams. Mom wanted to write stories that changed the world. Sarah wanted to fight for justice. They'd planned a life together, naive and hopeful, until Mom's parents found out. A letter from Sarah had fallen into their hands, and they'd threatened to disown Mom, to pull her college funding. They called it a sin, Sarah said, her voice bitter. Maggie was devastated. She started pulling away, saying she couldn't let her family down. I begged her to fight, but she was so young, Emily. We both were. I thought of Mom at 20, torn between love and duty. I'd seen her strength, how she'd cared for me and my brother, how she'd faced cancer with quiet courage. But I hadn't seen her fear, the weight of a world that demanded she hide who she was. Sarah pulled out another photo, this one from 1984, showing Mom and her laughing at a pride rally in Seattle. They wore rainbow pins, their faces alight with defiance. She was so brave that day, Sarah said. But when we got back to campus, she took off her pin and hid it. She said she couldn't risk it again. The story unfolded like a wound reopening. Mom had tried to balance her love for Sarah with her fear of losing everything else. When she met Dad, he was kind, steady, the kind of man her parents approved of. He proposed in 1985, and Mom said yes, not because she loved him romantically, but because he offered safety, a life where she could be a mother without judgment. Did she ever talk about me? I asked, my voice small. Sarah smiled. All the time. When you were born, she sent me a letter with your picture. She said you were her reason for everything. She wanted you to have a life free of the shame she felt. The words were a bomb and a blade. Mom had loved me fiercely, but at what cost? I thought of the times I'd caught her staring out the window, her eyes distant. Had she been thinking of Sarah? Of the life she'd left behind? Sarah and I spent hours talking, piecing together Mom's life. She'd kept writing poetry, even after marrying Dad, hiding it in her journal. Sarah had saved every letter, every note, as if they were pieces of Mom she could hold on to. She was my muse, Sarah said. Even when I moved on, I never stopped writing to her in my head. I asked about her life after Mom. Sarah had become a successful lawyer, fighting for LGBTQ rights in Portland. She'd had relationships, but none lasted. They weren't her, she said simply. The more we talked, the more I saw Mom through Sarah's eyes, a woman who loved deeply, who fought her battles in silence. But I also saw Dad's role more clearly. He'd been her partner, her protector, even when it hurt him. I remembered his quiet smiles, the way he'd hold Mom's hand at family dinners. Had he known about Sarah from the start? I called my brother James, who was living in Chicago. He was 5 years younger, less tied to the past, but I needed to know what he knew. Did Dad ever talk about Mom's other life? I asked. James was quiet for a moment. Once. After Mom died. He said she'd made sacrifices he could never understand, but he respected her for it. I thought he meant her career or something. Now, I don't know. His words confirmed what I'd suspected. Dad had carried Mom's secret for decades, loving her through it all. I hung up, my heart aching for him, for Mom, for the life they'd built on half-truths. Before I left Portland, Sarah gave me Mom's journal. She'd want you to have it, she said. Read it. Know her. Back in Seattle, I sat under the oak tree, the journal open in my lap. Mom's words were raw, unguarded, a window into her soul. She wrote about loving Sarah, about the guilt of marrying Dad, about the joy of raising me and James. One entry dated 2000 broke me. Emily asked me today why I don't write anymore. I couldn't tell her it's because my heart's too heavy. Sarah's out there living and I'm here pretending. I cried for hours, the journal clutched to my chest. Mom had loved us, but she'd never been whole. I wanted to honor her, to give her story the ending she couldn't have. Called Sarah. I want to do something for her, I said. Something that matters. Sarah's voice was warm. Come back. We'll figure it out together. The train to Portland felt like a pilgrimage now, each trip bringing me closer to Mom's truth. Sarah and I met at a park near her loft, the oak leaf pendant around her neck catching the sunlight. We decided to create something to honor MoMA scholarship in her name for LGBTQ youth, a way to give others the freedom she'd never had. It's what she would have wanted, Sarah said, her eyes bright with purpose. She always talked about helping kids find their voice. We spent weeks planning, contacting local organizations and setting up a foundation. I poured Mom's poetry into a booklet to share with donors, each line a testament to her hidden heart. Sarah handled the legal side, her expertise cutting through red tape. Working together felt like healing, like stitching together the pieces of Mom's life. One evening, as we sorted through donation pledges, Sarah told me about Mom's final days. When she got sick again in 2023, she called me, Sarah said. She didn't want you or your dad to know. She said she needed to see me one last time. My breath caught. What did she say? Sarah's voice trembled. She said she was sorry, that she'd loved me every day, even when she couldn't show it. She asked me to forgive her. Did you? I asked, my heart pounding. I didn't need to, Sarah said. I'd never stopped loving her. I told her that, and she smiled like she was finally free. The image of Mom smiling at peace broke something in me. I'd been so angry at her for hiding, for leaving me with questions, but now I saw her courage. She'd lived for us, for me, even when it meant locking away her heart. We launched the Margaret Thompson Scholarship Fund in a small ceremony at the University of Washington, under the same oak tree where Mom and Sarah had shared their first kiss. I read one of Mom's poems, my voice shaking. Love is a river unstoppable, even when dammed. It finds a way. The crowd, students, activists, friends applauded, but my eyes were on Sarah. She stood tall, tears streaming down her face, the oak leaf pendant gleaming against her chest. For the first time I felt Mom was there with us, her love no longer a secret. After the ceremony, Sarah and I walked to Lake Washington, the water reflecting the fading light. "Do you think she's watching?" I asked. Sarah squeezed my hand. "I know she is. And she's proud of you." I thought of Dad, of his final words. He'd known Mom's truth and loved her anyway, giving her the space to be herself, even if only in secret. I wanted to honor him too, the man who'd held our family together. I decided to add his name to the scholarship Margaret and David Thompson, a testament to their complex, selfless love. Back in Seattle, I went through Dad's things, looking for traces of his side of the story. In his desk, I found a letter he'd never sent, addressed to Mom, dated 2010. "Maggie, I saw her today at the hospital. I know who she is to you. I've always known. I love you enough to let you have her, even if it's just in your heart." I sobbed, clutching the letter. Dad had been the quiet hero, the one who'd carried the weight of Mom's secret without bitterness. I called James, reading him the letter. He was quiet for a long time. "He was a better man than I realized," he said finally. I agreed. Dad's love had been a gift, one Mom had cherished, even if she couldn't return it fully. I wanted to share their story, not to expose their pain, but to celebrate their strength. I started writing, weaving Mom's poetry, Sarah's memories, and Dad's letter into a memoir. Sarah helped me edit, her lawyer's precision balancing my emotional prose. We worked late into the nights, our bond growing stronger. She wasn't just Mom's love, she was becoming my friend, a bridge to the mother I'd never fully known. As the memoir took shape, I realized it wasn't just Mom's story, it was mine too. I'd spent my life searching for truth, for connection, and I'd found it in the most unexpected place. A love story that had defied time, shame, and sacrifice. The scholarship fund grew, with donations pouring in from across the country. At our second event, Sarah spoke, her voice steady as she shared Mom's story, not the details, but the heart of it. "Margaret taught me that love is worth fighting for, even when the world says no," she said. This fund is her legacy and ours. I looked out at the crowd, my heart full. Mom's love, Dad's sacrifice, Sarah's resilience, they were all part of me now. I wasn't just their daughter. I was their story, carrying it forward. The memoir, A River Unstoppable, was published in the spring of 2026, a year after Dad's death. It wasn't just Mom's story, it was a tapestry of love, loss, and redemption, woven from her poetry, Sarah's memories, and Dad's quiet heroism. At the launch in Seattle, under the oak tree in our backyard, I read the final chapter aloud, my voice steady despite the tears. "Mom loved Sarah with a fire that never dimmed," I read. "Dad loved Mom with a strength that never wavered. And I, their daughter, carry both their loves in me. A reminder that truth, no matter how hidden, always finds a way." The crowd, friends, family, strangers, stood in silence, then erupted in applause. Sarah was there, her hand in mine, the oak leaf pendant glinting in the sunlight. James had flown in from Chicago, his eyes red but proud. We'd all been shaped by Mom and Dad's choices, and now we were shaping something new. The scholarship fund had grown beyond our dreams, supporting dozens of LGBTQ students across the Pacific Northwest. Each recipient felt like a piece of Mom's heart, set free to live the life she couldn't. Sarah and I traveled to schools, sharing her story, not the pain but the hope. "Love is a right," Sarah would say, her voice fierce. "Margaret's story reminds us to claim it." One night after a talk in Portland, Sarah and I sat by the river, the city lights dancing on the water. "Do you ever wonder what she'd think of all this?" I asked. Sarah smiled, her eyes distant. "She'd be proud, but she'd probably tell us to stop fussing over her. She was humble like that." I laughed, picturing Mom's eye roll, her gentle way of deflecting praise. But I knew Sarah was right. Mom had lived for others, James, Dad, and now we were living for her. The memoir's success brought letters from readers, people who'd hidden their own truths, who'd loved in secret or sacrificed for family. One letter from a woman in Texas stayed with me. "Your mom's story gave me the courage to tell my daughter I'm gay. Thank you for showing me it's never too late." I shared the letter with Sarah, and we cried together, not out of sadness but gratitude. Mom's love, her pain, her sacrifice was rippling outward, changing lives. Dad's too. His quiet acceptance, his unwavering devotion, had made it possible. I visited their graves in Seattle, side by side under a willow tree. I laid the oak leaf pendant on Mom's headstone, a piece of her and Sarah together again. "You did good, Mom," I whispered. "You too, Dad." Back home I kept writing not just about Mom, but about the world she'd want, a world where love didn't have to hide. Sarah and I stayed close, our bond a bridge between past and present. She never stopped wearing the pendant, and I never stopped carrying Mom's journal, its pages worn from my touch. One evening as I sat under the oak tree, I opened the journal to a poem I hadn't read before, tucked in the back. It was dated 2023, Mom's final year. To Emily, my light. If you find this, know I loved you enough to live a lie, but love Sarah enough to live your truth. I closed the journal, tears streaming down my face. Mom had known I'd find her story, had trusted me to carry it. And I would, for her, for Dad, for Sarah, for every heart that deserved to love freely. The oak tree rustled above me, its leaves falling like whispers of Mom's voice. I looked up, feeling her presence, and smiled. Her love had been unstoppable, just like her poem said. And now it was mine to share. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.